Welcome to the Private Lending Insider Podcast, where we offer education, expert guidance, and access to reliable private capital, empowering real estate investors to successfully develop affordable and workforce housing. As a result of the education and expert guidance shared on the Private Lending Insider Podcast, real estate investors, developers, and entrepreneurs gain fair access to reliable private capital to fund their profitable investment properties with greater ease, enabling them to earn the income they desire and live the lifestyle they really want. For continuing education and access to private capital, visit chamblissmortgagecapital.com after the podcast. Here's your show host, founder, and CEO of Chambliss Mortgage Capital, Mr. Randy Chambliss, the private money lender expert.
Happy Thursday. I am Randy Chambliss, the private money lender. I am super excited, guys, to be here. The show is sponsored by Chambliss Mortgage Capital. So the purpose of the show is just to provide expert guidance, education, and access to private money for real estate investment property. So listen, I am excited. I have Mr. Damon Coleman joining me in this episode number 4 of the Private Money Lender Insider. Mr. Coleman is a proud father of 4 and a seasoned entrepreneur originally from St. Louis, now based in Houston with over 16 years of experience as a multiple 7-figure earner in direct sales and in network marketing. Whether you are a seasoned real estate investor yourself, you are an aspiring investor, or you just starting the race, right? Just getting the information that you need to get started. Well, Mr. Coleman's story, right, is sure to inspire you and motivate you as well. Continue watching on and listening if you are listening to the podcast right now to learn the strategies that he's used that's proven to work to build wealth and help others do the same. So listen, without further ado, I don't want to steal his thunder. Mr. Coleman, are you there, sir?
Yes, I am, Randy. Such an honor and a pleasure to be on this Zoom with you, man. We was talking about earlier, actually on this podcast, we was talking about earlier how we met 5 years ago and how fast that time went by. And as a matter of fact, Randy, it might have been closer to 6 years, man. I think I met you in 2018, brother. So 6 years have came and gone just like that. So you've done some great things in business yourself. And you came highly recommended by a former business partner. So I just want to tip my hat to you and say congratulations to you on all of your success and the amount of people you've been able to help.
Oh, man, much appreciated, man. Thank you so much for those words. It means a lot coming from you. And, you know, I love having guest speakers like yourself that's actually doing the work, right, and have the real results, because I learn along the way, too. You know, you're going to see me taking notes. You're going to see me putting it in the computer, because at the end of the day, sometimes you just need that one little strategy, that one little tweak, and it changes your life forever. And so that's, you know, why I'm excited to be able to share some information. So listen, if you don't mind, start us off, like talk to the listeners, Mr. Coleman, of where you at currently right now in your journey of life. And then where did you come from in the past? Like what some challenges, some learning lessons you had to grow through to get to the point where you're at right now?
So, you know, the irony of this podcast tonight is where I am is I've recently made a decision to get back into real estate investing. I started in my early 20s. I was 23 when I flipped my first property, made $13,000 on that deal. Within the same year, I flipped 2 other deals. One was $27,000. And by the end of the year, I flipped a deal where I was able to receive a cashier's check of over $50,000. And you know, I had some great success in real estate back then, flipping. I was telling you earlier today in a very transparent conversation, I got taken advantage of by my contractor, and I still was pretty profitable, you know, with my experience, and was actually able to start doing boarding houses back then as well, long before Airbnb and, you know, what we see today. My first mentor taught me about boarding homes and like how to rent rooms out. So I was renting rooms out like a extended stay, where I was collecting rent on not just a home, but on the individual rooms on a weekly basis. And so very excited to be back in this space. I'm also currently, doing financing in terms of personal financing, business funding, business credit, business funding. And so and then another thing, when I was flipping houses, my mentor taught me how to do mortgage loans. And so getting back to my grassroots of, entrepreneurship in my early 20s, though my entrepreneurship journey started way before my early 20s. But as a grown man taking care of a young family, I made my most money in my early 20s in real estate, back in that day. And now I feel like this is one of the best times we've seen to take advantage of the real estate market.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that journey, because that is absolutely the truth, right? No matter what society is saying, what that news is saying, because at the end of the day, that CNN, in all due respect, this constant negative news, that's it. And so I encourage everybody is to always continue to obtain financial literacy, right? To keep going. And so one of the things I usually share, Mr. Coleman, is that there's about $87 trillion that's combined, tied up into private equity firms and private and investor capitalist companies, right? So those two, venture capitalists and private credit firms, equity firms, $87 trillion with a T is tied up into those. And about 1.33% of that $87 trillion trickles down and reinvested into businesses that started and ran by women and people of color combined. And so what that means is that fair, equitable access to capital is not always there for that aspiring and even seasoned entrepreneur. But here's what I learned. I want everybody to really understand this. The biggest donor to these venture capital and private equity firms is public employee pension systems. So everybody have somebody in their family that's either a teacher, police officer, firefighter, somebody working in one of the government hospital as a nurse. And every time they earn a paycheck, a portion that goes up into their retirement and aggregated is given to these large corporations or funds, even mutual funds, right? And so that being said, now you have an opportunity to see that distressed house in your neighborhood, but you don't have all the cash to close it, rehab it, and then turn right around and either rent it as an affordable housing like you was doing with the boarding homes, or turn it and sell it as an affordable or workforce housing in today's market. So it's critical that you mention the fact that you do business funding, because America is not just a democracy. We were talking about this earlier. It's a capitalistic democracy. So touch a little bit on why it's important for individuals to have, one, the financial literacy and have access to business capital like you was referring to.
Oh, absolutely. The short and simple answer is you pay for what you do not know. Mm-hmm. And I know it's a lot of division in the country right now, in terms of who just got elected in presidential office. Okay. Well, I'm sharing this because I actually started reading Donald Trump's books on business long before he was a presidential candidate. And one of the things that I learned in reading those books, that him and Robert Kiyosaki actually used to co-author books together. And one of the things that I found out was why you should not use your own money when it comes to investing, especially in real estate. Now, when I got started, I didn't know this. Okay. So I was using my own money, in order to get started. And I mean, it's not like it's the worst thing in the world, but when you look at, somebody in office that filed bankruptcy 8 times, how was he able to stay wealthy filing bankruptcy 8 times? Well, because he filed bankruptcy on other people's lending funds, where he protected and insulated his personal funds. So he always had enough capital to really get the ball back rolling. And so a lot of people are not familiar with business credit or business funding and how it all works. And so, like you said, financial literacy is the key. You pay for what you don't know. And so when you have less than perfect credit, when you have, zero business credit, you can still make some moves, but you're going to get hit the hardest when it comes to interest rates, down payments. And so the deal is not as sweet as it could have been. Like I said, we particularly talking about real estate right now, but that's when it comes to any type of lending, but any type of business transaction that one would want to have.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, real estate investing, it's a very capital intense business. Whether you're doing residential single family, 4-unit property, or even moving to a commercial space. And right now, the commercial space is getting hit very, very hard in regards to office buildings. We right on that cusp, right on that verge of a crisis with our regional and local banks. So oftentimes individuals go to the traditional banks to get a business loan, but 80% of the time the bank says no. And that's not always because of a circumstance, but in this day and time, they can't, because they're holding the keys to tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in office buildings, because after COVID-19, when COVID-19 hit, people was working from home. They are virtual, just like we virtual right now. And so the office spaces lost a lot of money, and these capital venture companies, private credit firms, equity firms, and even mutual funds, the custodians that's been holding these notes, they're turning the keys in. But it's always about, and this leads me to and I love talking about this with you, because we was on the phone earlier, you was talking about the law of vibration and the law of attraction. What was the difference? And there's a law called the law of polarity, like you know about. Everything has an equal opposite. So just like I just gave those stats, and that sound real bad, and it is, right? Because there's something on the horizon in commercial lending. And that's why private credit and private money has been rising so much and enhancing so much, because the need is there, because the traditional banks can't lend, even if they want to. But the polarity of that, the opposite side of that, those who are listening, if you're in a commercial space, then this is your opportunity to go and buy those commercial office buildings at a deep discount at a wholesale rate, and redevelop that into an affordable housing piece. Develop that into maybe a boutique hotel, and to be able to get that cash flow back. And so we know that, again, the business and any business you're doing is a very capital intense business. So step me through the reason, like give me the listeners, the reason why you made that decision. Say, you know what? I want to start in the real estate investment industry again now, at this time when everybody's saying, no, it's not quite a good time. What made you make the decision to move forward now?
It's a couple. First of all, my first mentor that I had in real estate, I've only had one mentor in real estate. His name is Greg Wings, and I love him like a dad, man. Great guy to this day. We still friends. And one thing he said to me as he was teaching me about boarding homes, and he taught me how to do mortgage financing, and he taught me how to, flip houses. He said, Big D, as long as the sun is going up and going down, people will always need a place to stay. And I was 21 years old when he told me. I didn't start investing until I was 23, but I was 21 years old. I was doing loans. I was a loan originator for Mr. Wings. And that just stayed in my ear, man. And I remember like yesterday, I just got married at 21 years old, starting a new family, had 2 kids, one on the way. And I had an old Cutlass Supreme.
Oh, man, I love the cut dog.
Got a cut dog, Randy. And I said, well, now I got a family, man, I need to get me an SUV or something. So I remember going to the Chevrolet dealership in St. Louis, where I'm originally from, and just, looking around at some, used older vehicles. And I remember the gentleman came outside and said, new or used? I'm like, who are we talking to? New or used? I'm like, oh. So I act like I was aware that I had this good credit. I said, well, let's take a look at the new, SUVs and everything. And I found out on that day, not only did I have credit, but the power of credit, because even as a young married man, I took out loans, took out a Zelle jewelry account to get my wife a wedding ring. Then I financed some furniture. All necessities, things that I really needed, but I didn't know I was building credit. That Cutlass Supreme was only $3,500, but I financed, $1,700, and they actually reported it to the credit bureau. And so here I am, 21 years old, walking off the lot with a brand new Tahoe, but I kept remembering Mr. Wings talk about credit, and I was learning about credit doing mortgage lending. So as soon as I got the truck, I went straight to the office. I said, Mr. Wings, I got credit. I got credit. And immediately, man, he did a pre-approval on me. We got to work. Then fast forward, Randy, one of the things that a lot of people don't know about me, man, is that I did federal time for cocaine and marijuana conspiracy. Okay. And so when I got indicted, I couldn't make a move, man. Like, I owned a barbershop and a beauty salon at that time, but I wasn't, operating as a barber anymore. I was full-time in the street selling dope. And so when I got indicted, man, I was still able to keep my livelihood going because of those boarding houses. I was able to pick up rent every single week, man. I was picking up cashier's checks, and where typically somebody might make $200 or $300, maybe $500 on a rental property, I was making almost twice my mortgage payment for those properties. Okay. And so stuff like that, especially when you find yourself in a bind and then you got money coming in, man, it's keeping you afloat. I never forgot about that experience. And so when I got into multi-level marketing in 2008, the economy crashed and real estate went right down with it. So that's how I got introduced to multi-level marketing, made a lot of money, helped a lot of people, as you said. But man, it's been up and down like a seesaw, just about like any business would be, where you can earn, those type of income. So you're going to have some, what we call some springs and summers, and then you're going to have winter. And it's a guarantee winter is coming. However, regardless of what's happening in the economy, regardless of what happens in any type of business, people need a place to stay. And so being 48, going on 50 years old now, man, having 4 children from 11 years old to 29, I'm like, man, this is the time where I start building that legacy. I had a lot of fun, made a lot of money in multi-level marketing, helped a lot of people, but I'm like, pushing 50, got 2 more children, getting ready to go to college. My oldest daughter graduated Spelman. I got to put that out there because I'm a proud dad, HBCU grad, man. It's like, okay, Damon, what are you doing now to position yourself to have ongoing wealth, be able to build ongoing wealth, regardless of what happens in the economy? And so contrary to what people might say about interest rates, about the inflation of the housing market, it's just a matter now of being connected to the right people like you, Randy, that understand financing, that understand leverage and timing and how to buy smart. So one of the things that I learned the hard way as a young real estate investor is, man, you need a coach. You need a mentor. You need somebody to walk you through the process. And some of your multi-millionaire investors still have coaches. They still have people they glean from. And so as long as you have the right mentorship, coaching, until you get that OG experience in real estate, you want to, seek out somebody that's going to help you buy smart and make good investments regardless of the economy.
Oh man, that was a mouthful. I love it. Thank you for sharing that, because a lot of people needed to hear that, because so many people, when life hit them on the blind side, they give up, they quit. And so oftentimes you see those individuals that do throw in the towel, and now they can't find a job, and they're not even thinking about entrepreneurship. They're not even thinking about investing because they think that they can't do it. And it goes back to your point. It doesn't matter what's going on. Here we are with 5G internet speed. Here we are with AI. And AI is going to take a tremendous amount of jobs away from the working American. But at the same time, AI cannot take away a place to live. that's always is going to have a need there. And so when we look at the economy or what's going on, and we look at our community, and we look at the poverty that sometimes, but sometimes it turns into being homeless. And so what I really love about the social impact that all our listeners and our clients and our business partners and investors are all on one page, and that is to reduce and prevent homelessness in our community. And I'm not really talking about, the veteran that been homeless chronically, for the last 10 years. I'm talking about maybe that sister that just got a divorce. She have 2 kids and she's a working sister, but she can't afford that $1,800 rent for that 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. Or she can't afford that $300,000 mortgage note, but she working, she went to school, but it's tough. And if she don't make that mortgage payment or make that rent payment, she's out on the what? Street. Same thing with that young man, that brother. He working 2 jobs. He may not have a spouse. It's only his income that he's working. But yet still, no matter what he do, he still have more bills left over at the end of the month than he have cash flow. And so it's not up to the federal government, in my humble opinion. It's not up to the state or local government to be able to solve the housing crisis. It's not. It's not even up to the nonprofits to solve the housing problem. Why? Because the nonprofits, they are wanting to perpetually continue the housing problem because that's how they benefit. Right? They get grants. They have their income being paid. So it makes no sense for the nonprofit to totally solve the problem when they're benefiting from it. And so we know the local banks and regional banks, they're not in the business of being landlords or developers. If they was, they would be selling REO properties. And those who may be new, REO is real estate owned by banks. The banks don't want to hold a real estate. It's a liability on their book. And so what they do, they sell these properties. But the solution, the people that's going to drive our community forward is going to be people like you and I. The people that you didn't coach, that mentored over the years and help them to earn 6-figure incomes. It's going to be the average working mom and dad that's going to aggregate themselves together with the proper mentor, like you mentioned, the comprehensive education, and have that expert guidance. And like we've been talking about the whole time, having fair and equitable access to the capital so they can play the game of real estate investing. Because if you in your 20s, if you didn't have access to money, cash, or you didn't have access to capital, how could you have done those deals? So I want to make a little small tweak right now. You had mentioned something about building wealth. Like one of my favorite books talking about leaving inheritance to your children. How important it is for not only you to look at your current lifestyle right now, but also the future lifestyle of your grandkids. How important it is to you?
That's majorly important because I do understand that life happens. It doesn't matter your level of education. It doesn't matter your level of success. Life happens to the best of the best. We just talked about the new elected president who filed bankruptcy multiple times. Well, that wasn't because he wanted to. It's because something failed. Okay, something did not work out. And so for me, I pride myself in being able to set my children, to set their children up so that, man, when life does happen, they still have something to lean on. And I don't think it's anything much better than to have real estate. You talked about, taking some of these commercial properties and turning them into boutique hotels. Well, man, we didn't have that conversation, but that's a little longer term goal for me, to have boutique hotels. Something that's, an experience for people, something that people look forward to going to, not just because they need a room, and providing those type of products. If you look at the Marriott family, man, that's generational wealth, right? I don't have to be one of the Marriotts. I don't have to be one of the Hiltons. However, I can get my Marriott Hilton legacy on my way by establishing residual income, cash flow. Talk about the cash flow quadrant and what that looks like. But cash flow is king. So you can make all the money in the world. And I'm an example of this, man. You make a lot of money, you build up this lifestyle, business comes down in terms of the revenue, but the lifestyle stays high. Now you just basically living to maintain because your money flow is not the same. Well, when you look at real estate, it's one of the most consistent ways and most common ways of building wealth for the average person. One of the things that I'm excited about is being able to help people that have jobs, that want to be an entrepreneur, but they don't know how to break in. They don't know the formula, but to be able to take somebody that has a 9 to 5 and that's all they've ever done, but now they have a desire to want to start earning some residual income, start building a portfolio, for their retirement or for their children. Man, I'm proud to be able to introduce somebody to something that is going to help them, not just today, but to have cash flow. Should they get laid off? Should the 401k take a 20, 30, 40% hit? So, these are some of the reasons why I believe generational wealth is important, but I also believe one of the best ways to build that is through positive cash flow.
Wow. Yep, absolutely. And cash flow, like you mentioned, is king. We have to be able to have more cash left over at the end of the month than we do bills. That's the only way we can invest. But at the end of the day, there's some challenges that we have to be aware of and know how to overcome. Like, for example, taxes, right? When the individual only have that job, once they get their paycheck, 30%, almost 30% is coming out just for taxes. However, if they have a small-based business, a home-based business, some type of business that they could have an adjustment made on those W-4s, now they have some write-off because when they go and eat at a restaurant, if they're talking about business, they can write that meal off. If they go and buy new clothing and it's for business purposes, then they go write that off. So it lowers their tax bill just for having that financial literacy, having that information. Secondly, debt.
And even on the interest too, Randy, they can write off the interest that they pay on a home. That's a huge tax deduction.
Huge. Anything you fix on that thing, that roof or whatever, it's huge. And like you mentioned, those are the things that's not taught in the school system, high school, college, and it's not talked about in the average table, eating dinner with the family. But we have to have these conversations, period. And so I want to talk to you about mindset for a moment. Setting your mind on a goal. I heard you say this word a couple of times. You decided. You had made a decision. So walk us through your thoughts, your mindset, where you at today. How do you co-create in this universe? How do you make things happen when life seems like it can't be done?
So, you talked about a book that you like to read sometimes that talks about how a good man lays up wealth for his children's children. Okay. Well, that's spiritual development. Okay. And that's number one. However, you also have personal development, mindset, training, and all the principles that you learn through mindset and personal development come from that good book that you're speaking about, but it's in a format that makes it more practical in terms of applying these principles. One of the principles is you become what you think about. Mm-hmm. So the mind is the most powerful thing that we possess. And so listening to audios, reading books, man, that really encourage me to be mindful of how I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. Because if you feel like you're doing bad and you focus on how bad you're doing, well, you're only going to attract more bad to you. Mm-hmm. If you focus more on doing well, living in your future, and what I call the wish fulfilled, okay, acting as though what you want has already happened by the way you carry yourself, by your conversations, being forward moving, not backwards. All of these practices put you on a frequency where now you can attract, because people do like to talk about the law of attraction. But like we talked about earlier, that's the secondary law. The primary law is the law of vibration. So how you feel has everything to do with the frequency that you're on. And everything that we want is already here. We just have to match the frequency of whatever that is, and it comes to us automatically. It's like a radio antenna, right? Back in the day, we had our little box radios, man, had the little antenna on them, and you're looking for your station, and you
I
just
feel
keep
old
turning,
now.
You keep turning until you match that frequency, and now you're on your favorite radio station, man. As soon as you get off that frequency, you get static. Well, I wouldn't have known to be consciously aware of this had I not been training my mind, had I not been reading books like As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, okay, one of my all-time favorites, U Squared by Price Pritchett, that talks about multiplying your personal effectiveness into quantum leaps, okay? Because a lot of times, we hear, oh man, everybody want to take the elevator for success, but you got to take the stairs. That's because that's what they believe.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to take the stairs. You get the right coach, you get the right mentor, you get involved with the right opportunity, and man, you can run past people. And this is not a put down, okay, at all. By no means, or what I'm about to say, I'm putting down my ex-wife. My ex-wife is a physician, okay? 4 years of undergrad at Xavier. I know you like that, don't you, Randy? Being from New Orleans, homeboy. 4-year grad at Xavier, okay? 1 year of pre-med school, 4 years of medical school. We had 9 years now. 3 more years for residency. Now you're 12 years, okay? And the starting salary for a pediatrician is $110,000 before you take your boards. That's it. Once you take your boards, you can now, depending on where you work, you can earn $120,000, $130,000, and you stay in there long enough, you get up to about 175, maybe 2 max. Okay, maybe 2 max, but it would take you over 20 to 25 years from the start of medical school all the way up to being seasoned in your career to make that kind of money. Why am I sharing this? Because here it is. I got out of federal prison in 2007, and by July 2009, I was earning over $50,000 a month in income. Never went to college, Randy. That's what you call a quantum leap, right? But I didn't know that that's what it was called at the time. I got introduced to U Squared by Price Pritchett, and it's a Y-O-U and a big red number 2 on the cover. But I got introduced to this book maybe 6 years ago. Now, you say, well, Damon, if you was already having quantum leaps, why you need to read the book? Because it's one thing to know what you're, okay, so you have what we call unconsciously incompetent. That's when you don't know that you don't know. Then you have consciously incompetent, nor you know that you don't know. And then the goal is to be consciously competent. Why do you want to be consciously competent? Because you want to be intentional in everything that you do. You don't want to go through life at 50 years old and you having success or failure by accident. So mindset is so important. Personal development is so important because it exposes you to you. It lets you know if you're open.
Say that part again. Say that part again, Mr. Coleman.
Personal development exposes you to you. That's why it's called personal. It ain't for Randy to tell me about me because I might not want to receive. I might not respect Randy. I might not think Randy got the proven track record to tell me anything. I might have an ego. I might not want to hear it. But when I get in my space, in my car, in my home, where it's just me and it's just God, and I'm listening to the information, these principles, these power principles, biblical principles, now it's like, oh man, it's not for me to condemn myself, but it's to expose myself in terms of, Damon, this is what you need to be working on, or this is what you need to stay away from, or this is what you need to be doing more of, this is what you need to be doing less of. But most importantly, what has taught me, Randy, is how to be a better thinker and how to make decisions. because that's the number one key to success, in my opinion, outside of my faith, is to be able to make a decision. And I haven't always made the right decision, but when I make a decision, I do everything to make the decision right.
Wow, man, I love it. And I heard this phrase a long time ago, and I held on to it, that successful people make a decision very, very quickly and change it very, very slowly, if they even change it at all. But unsuccessful people make decisions very, very slowly. Let me talk to my dad. Let me talk to my pastor. Let me think about it. And changing very, very fast. And what my interpretation or my perspective was that's because they never made a decision to know exactly what they want. They don't have a target goal. I remember one of my mentors was talking to me. I held on to that. He said that tell your emotions how to feel. Give your mind a purpose. So when you give your mind a purpose, that's the goal. That's the target goal, whatever that looks like for you. But in order to get there, like you mentioned, you have to understand how you operate, how you think. I like to use this acronym called BEAR, BEAR. The B stands for belief, and the E stands for emotions, the A stands for action, and the R stands for results. And so sometimes when we're not getting the results we prefer, we always go to the action. And if many of you all that's listening and watching to this podcast, you probably either did it yourself or know somebody that always go to the action. And it will work for maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a month, maybe 2 months. But eventually, that's not a habit that's created. That's not a paradigm. That's not a subconscious program. So it's not going to last. And you're going to go right back to default to the same old person that you used to be. However, when we understand how this works, we have to go towards the cause, because that law of cause and effect decrees and declares that everything has a cause, and that cause sets up an effect, and effect set up a cause, and this is a causation, a train of causation of cause and effect. So the cause is going to be the thinking. It's going to be that belief. When we change our thinking and have the habitual habits of reading our goals out loud in that present tense, but more important, like you mentioned earlier, feeling that feeling as if it's already done. And the only way we can feel that feeling if it's already done, you have to visualize it and see it in your mind's eye, in that inner eye, and create that feeling. So now that feeling is created, you vibrating on that frequency of the thing that wish that you want. And so now your emotions kicked in, because that belief turns into the emotion. Now you're feeling better. You're feeling confident. You have clarity. You're speaking with certainty. And so now you feeling that way. You're taking massive action. You're not taking little action, because you can't fail. Like there's no way you can fail. You starting the race knowing that you can win. And so now you're taking this massive action, putting it in work, right? You have to work. And as you're working, you're going to get the results you prefer. And if you don't, just make some little tweaks and adjustments and you keep going. So you mentioned about the law of vibration and the law of attraction, meaning that law of attraction is secondary law. So tell us, if somebody they're in a space right now, they're at this level, and they want to get to this level, what actually they have to do to raise up their vibration to meet that frequency for them to actually attract that to them?
It's a couple of things. If you can see it in your head, you can hold it in your hand. So one of the things that I encourage and that I practice is visualizations. So in the morning, when I wake up, I go to my future. I'm not thinking about the present, because if all I think about is the present, then I'm going to stay in the present. So I live in my future. This is what we know as kids call daydreaming. And it's the dreamers that dream by day that are the most successful. Nights when you're sleeping, that's a subconscious effort. But when you're consciously living in your future, living in the wish fulfilled, not just visualizing in terms of, man, this is what, my future is going to look like, but how's it going to feel? My girlfriend and I went out Sunday and we looked at some mansions, man, maybe like 7-8 minutes from where I live. Okay. And I'm talking about, 1.2 to $2.5 million homes. Absolutely gorgeous. And I told her, I said, well, we don't find new neighborhoods. I've only been in Houston for a couple of years. So I'm still getting to know my way around. I said, we don't find any new homes, new neighborhoods to look at this Sunday, because every Sunday, this is what we're going to be doing. And man, it was so powerful because since this past Sunday, every day I have a clear image of what this one particular house looks like. And I'm focused on the wish fulfilled, and I'm imagining what it's going to feel like when I pull in the garage in my Maybach. I'm going to be visualizing what it's going to feel like when I invite my family over and they coming in from out of town, man, and they don't have to get a hotel. We got extra rooms and they waking up. We got the huge kitchen and the huge island in the living room, all connected, and everybody fellowshipping and talking. And then you see out of the back of the home, the floor to ceiling windows, man. And you see the swimming pool and the kids out there playing. And, I'm living in this. So I know it's only a matter of time before the right opportunity comes that puts me in that position to get that home. Another thing, we talked about this earlier, Randy, one of the practices that we do, and you shared earlier you do, is that you write down your goals, okay? That good book also says, write the vision and make it plain and put it where you can see it. So speaking affirmations is one thing, but seeing the declarations and the affirmations is like pouring gasoline on the fire. So speaking it out of your mouth, seeing it with your eyes, and feeling it with your emotions. So I'm a firm believer that you get what you want in life through words, images, and emotions. What you say, what you see, and how you feel.
I'm writing that down. Say that one more time. Images, words, images, and what?
What you want in life through words, images, and emotions. So what you say, what you see, and how you feel. Okay?
That's right.
And so this is a formula. This is a formula. And you might not do it perfectly, but that's okay. That's why personal development is an ongoing, lifelong process. My dad is 74 as of this year. And my dad still goes to seminars, still goes to workshops, still reads books, still listens to audios on how he could become a better version of himself. So, we're not going to get it perfect ever, man, but it's something about the process that makes us and defines us into who we are.
Absolutely. And you made me think about Bob Proctor. So Bob Proctor, he passed away like, I don't know, maybe a year ago, but he was like in his late 80s. And I remember he made a statement on one of the videos before he passed. He said, man, I've been studying this and teaching this for 60 plus years. And he said, I'm not perfect, but I'm getting there. So he is studying for 60 plus years, teaching it for 60 plus years, but he still never had it 100% correct. But yet he was still going and still moving. And one thing that I like that he has said, and I hold on to it, he said that out of them 60 years I was studying me. And you said that earlier. We got to study us, how we think, how we feel, how we vibrate. We have to know that. That's the only way we can make change. Nothing changes if nothing changes. If nothing changes today, you're not putting in certain work today. You're not writing your vision down, making it plain. You're not speaking it out loud. You're not visualizing it. You're not feeling those feelings. Then what makes you think that the future is going to change? It's not, unfortunately. But when you put in that work, the mental work is harder than the physical work. The mental work, that's the work that we got to put in. And once we're able to put that in aggressively every day and just getting better and better and better, then the progression is there. The progression is going to be there. So with that being said, in regards to understanding how the feelings is associated with the thoughts, and the thoughts is associated with your goal is. What are outside the home that you're visualizing right now? What target goal that you have from an income standpoint? Because a lot of people, Mr. Coleman, I found, be afraid to say that, hey, I want to make $50,000 a month. I want to make $100,000 a month. I want to take my annual income and turn it into a monthly income. I remember doing a seminar, teaching a seminar, and one of my students said he had made $20,000 that month. And a lady turned around, she was like, oh my goodness, $20,000. Oh my goodness. And she looked at him like it was something wrong. And so a lot of people have that money mindset that they've been taught that's keeping them having a glass ceiling. How can someone get rid of that money block?
Well, a lot of times, we talk about the law of attraction, the law of vibration. There's also a law of environment. It's also the law of place. And so one of the things that I have been, so let me back up a little bit. You said something powerful, and I don't want to interrupt in terms of what you were saying, but you said something maybe 5-10 minutes ago about knowing what you want. So outside of being able to make a decision in terms of being one of the most powerful things you can do as an entrepreneur, but it's also knowing what you want, because if you don't know what you want, then you're on the frequency of attracting everything. So once you define what you want, soon as you define what you want, immediately you start raising your vibration to match that frequency to attract what that really is. How's something going to come to you and it doesn't even know that you want it? So for me, when you talk about the law of environment, I knew that I wanted my next wife. We ain't married yet, but I'm dating for marriage. So I don't have a girlfriend for sport. Okay, we're moving in that direction. However, I had already drew out who she was going to be. I didn't have a face. Bob Proctor teaches this. Okay, it's called the relationship. It's called the starburst. And it's basically when you draw a circle. If you want a wife, you put her. If you want a husband, you put him. So you put him or her in that circle. And out that circle, you draw spokes all around it, like on the bike. And on every spoke, you write down the characteristics, the personality, okay, that you would like your wife or your husband to possess. You can't put a face on it. That's witchcraft, because the thought waves are powerful. You don't be playing with people's heads and minds, constantly trying to make somebody to be yours, and they might not even be ordained to you. Okay, so no face at all. And one of the things that I wrote was into personal development, into personal fitness, entrepreneurial spirit, driven, ambitious, great mom, loves kids, right? I can go on and on. Believes in God, fears God, trusts God, prays for me, prays for the family. I just started going crazy, man, and I kept adding stuff. Well, here it is now. I have a girlfriend that's into personal development. Yesterday, man, we had a real life conversation. And before I knew it, matter of fact, it was last night, here it is, she's pouring into me. Things that I already have read or heard, but here it comes these positive reinforcements. So outside of writing it down, outside of just feeling good, outside of, speaking the affirmation, who are you surrounding yourself with? I don't have a big social circle. So if I'm not pouring into me, the only other people that's really at this point could do it are my kids or my person. Well, I ain't have a person for a while, but I knew I wanted one, but I don't want just any old one. I wanted a specific person. So I'm very specific about who I surround myself with. I went to a networking event 2 Fridays ago. All entrepreneurs, man, different industries, different businesses. We're connecting. Now I'm going to be a guest on another podcast this up and coming Tuesday with another gentleman that's into financial literacy. And we're looking to collaborate and do some different things. And so you want to be mindful of your circle, because one thing about it, if you can't change the people around you, and typically you can't, then you need to change the people around you. And so sometimes it comes down to, you got to be okay with you. You got to learn to love you. You got to be okay with being in your own company, even if you are married or in a relationship, because they might not feel good all the time. It's great if you got somebody that can encourage you, but nothing like being able to encourage yourself. So starting with self-love, pouring into you, the more you pour into you, the better person you become and the better type of people you start to attract into your life.
Man, that was powerful. That really hit home for me because I'm being transparent, Mr. Coleman. That's exactly how I got my wife right now. My wife and I, we've been married for 14 years. And I was single. Thank you, sir. I had got out of a relationship for 10 years. It was a year or so I was single. And I did just that. I wrote down exactly the characteristics of my future wife. And when I met my current wife right now, within 8 months, we was married. Like it was done.
Hold on, man. Girl, you're listening to the podcast, Randy. Slow down, man. Slow down, brother.
That part,
like, see, Randy got married in 8 months. Look how successful he is.
Yeah, exactly right. And it goes back to what I said earlier, right? When you know what you want, you made a decision, you're clear, you have clarity, you're going to make decisions very, very quickly because I know what I want. It wasn't an accident she came across me. I was vibrating on that frequency. She was vibrating on that frequency. And when we met, I was like, this is it. I'm looking on that paper. Check, 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 check. But to your point, this is logical. This is not fairy tale. This is real. This is proven, done. It is. And I remember I was sharing this with the family over the weekend because we always have studies, with the family come together. And I was telling them, yes, you have a conscious mind and you have that subconscious mind. But most people don't know you have this super conscious mind. And oftentimes when you're doing the right thing, you putting out good seeds, you're not taking nothing from nobody, you're not harming nobody, you're in the good spirits, right? You're that righteous person. And when you ask that question, Most High God, how would you like me to proceed to reach these goals? Like you in that meditating state, how would you like me to proceed? What should I do? Because we don't know. And then when you in that meditation state, you're going to get that answer. The answer is going to come. And oftentimes we hear the answer, we don't write it down, we don't take it serious, and then we allow that second voice to come, which is that voice of reasoning. And that voice is going to come and say, well, how are you going to do that? The second voice is going to come and say, you don't have time to do that. And then we think about it for a little while, listen to that voice of reason and say, yeah, right. You're right. I'm not worried about it. And then you move on. But you just missed a potential path that was designed and created. You prayed for it, you got that answer, but you didn't take that leap of faith and go down that route. And so oftentimes that happens throughout life and it delays the process. But then when you're right within, you ask those questions, you just trust in the flow of life. You are happy and free now. You're not trying to force nothing to happen. You are not trying to force nothing to happen. You're just going with the flow. The current knows where you got to go. Just trust it. So we have a couple of minutes left, Mr. Coleman. So how can some listeners and watchers get in touch with you and to be able to use your services that you have? Like, how can somebody connect with you, sir?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I don't know if they can see my name spelled out here on the screen, but my Instagram is my name @Damon Coleman, and so is my Facebook. You guys can follow me there. You can send me a DM. Now, I can't let this Zoom go off without sharing. I do also own my own feminine hygiene brand called Essentiables, which is a non-toxic, super-absorbent menstrual pad for that special time of the month. We raise awareness, we educate men, women, and children on the harmful effects of some of today's tampons and sanitary napkins. That's an online e-commerce business that I started back in 2016. And we're still going to this day. And we've helped thousands of women across the country to have better menstrual cycles. So I had to drop that plug, Randy. But in terms of everything else we discussed, guys, feel free to reach out to me. Randy, I'm looking forward to working with you. Man, I don't think it's by happenstance that you invited me to be on this podcast right when I made a decision that, man, I'm getting back into real estate, and it's going to be my primary focus in terms of building and creating wealth outside of my baby with my feminine hygiene products. So with that being said, brother, I want to thank you for your time, having me on as a guest today, and I look forward to working with you here in the very near future.
Oh, same here, brother. And I'm glad that you made that statement, because bringing awareness to our ladies and our men is extremely important, education and everything. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you all for listening. God bless, and enjoy the rest of your day on purpose. And I mean that, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go.
That brings today's show to a close. Thank you for listening to the Private Lending Insider Podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, feel free to share it with a friend and subscribe. Please follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Randy the Private Moneylender. For continuing education and access to reliable private capital, visit chamblissmortgagecapital.com. Until next time, choose to have a great day on purpose.